If you want ketchup, you buy Haines. If you want flat pack furniture, you go to IKEA, and if you want to drive off-road, you go to the Land Rover. And if you want a 50-foot boat that will go through pretty much anything, you buy a Targa. But this isn't any Targa. This is the Targa 46, the flagship of the range, and this particular boat has got about £250,000 worth of extras on it, so it is probably one of the highest spec Targas on the water. But because it's the biggest and most expensive, does that mean it's the best? Well, in this review, I'm going to find out by testing its performance, having a close look around its decks and interior, and telling you why it reminds me of my favourite pair of shoes. I'm Jack Haines, welcome to YachtBuyer. And I am pleased to report, viewers, that we have what you might describe as Targa weather. A big storm blew through past Pool yesterday, and the remnants of the swell have given us something to play with here. So we are now romping through it at 20 knots, which we're just sort of taking it easy really for the camera, to be honest, because we were doing 25, 30 knots through it a moment ago, and it was absolutely fine. But this is just the sort of conditions that you would want to be on this boat in. It just cruises over them like there's nothing there. And you know, the hull is obviously doing a lot of that work, but I've also got the option of the suspension seat, which just takes the edge off even more if there ever is a slightly larger one, and you just float over it with the seat doing all of the work. And the driving position really does build in heavily to what makes this such a great boat to drive. You can see the position I'm in here in rough weather. No temptation to stand up. I could if I wanted to, because the whole dash adjusts, as does the wheel. The seat slides so I can stand and lean very comfortably, but I don't need to. I'm just letting the hull and I'm letting the seat do the work. And there's nothing particularly trick about a Targa hull. It isn't stepped, you know, it's relatively deep. It's got a nice flare on it, but it's just capable. There's magic in the sauce, and they know what they're doing, and no matter what size, it just gets you through it. But obviously at this size, this nearly 50-footer, it's just so easy to cruise through conditions like this, even if I up the speed a little bit. And I think 25 knots, you're still not taxing the engines in any way. You know, this is a 37 knot boat, flat out. You can have larger IPS engines. This has got the 480 horsepower, the 650s. You can have the IPS 800s with 600 horsepower, giving you, 2 knots extra at the top end, but you're still going to cruise in this 25 to 30 knot band. And yeah, even in a decent swell, we can do that. And if I just look back at my screen here, yeah, we're doing between 100 and 120 litres an hour. So yeah, at 25 knots, you've probably got a range of about 375 nautical miles. Now we're getting some big ones. Here we go. This is what the Targa wants. You don't want to be testing this in flat calm conditions. It's just brilliant. It is so well attuned to conditions like this. A rolling swell just romps through it. Loads of power on tap just to be able to adjust the speed as you need to. Plenty of grunt to get you back out of the hole. Sorry, Alex, I know you're wobbling around a bit over there, but I'm hoping this is demonstrating exactly what this boat is designed for. We've got a few sailing boats out here. It is July, you wouldn't be able to tell. There aren't many other power boats out, because you wouldn't really want to be out in this in much else. Let's turn downwind and see what she's like when we've got the swell behind us. It isn't quite as agile as the sterndrive version, and of course with the sterndrive version, which is the standard boat, you got D6 440 horsepower, you've got a bit more control over the legs and the trim. Here we've got the trim assist on, you've got the blades that are all part of the Volvo system, and the boat's just doing the work for me. I'm setting the speed and the electronics are doing the rest. So if you really want to get into the detail of driving and trimming the boat, you probably want the sterndrives. But if you just want to set the speed and let the boat do the work, this is the one. And we are now doing 30 knots down swell, and she really gets into her stride at this sort of speed. And it's by no means cumbersome with IPS, by no means at all. It still turns really nicely. It's phenomenally agile. The boat may look like it's been designed with a ruler, but in terms of poise and dynamics, it is just so sweet. You might call it a sleeper in the motoring world, something that looks unassuming, but underneath there is potent performance. And this is where it really starts to chew up the miles. Downwind, big swell, 32 knots. I'm still incredibly comfortable in this position here. It just feels solid. You can do nothing to upset this thing. And it's so dry. You know, there's a bit of breeze about, there's a big swell. We've barely got a speck of salt on the windscreen. But I think at this point I probably need to take a brave pill and head up onto the Flybridge, because of course that is one of the appeals of the Targa. You've got a Flybridge to drive from as well, so let's do that. Ah yes, here we go. Wind in the face, breathing in the conditions. It's a much plainer driving environment up here, but it still works really well. I've still got slide adjustment, adjustable wheel. It's very simple, it's very clean, but hey, it does the job. And I should mention that electronics packages are completely custom on a Targa. You start with nothing and you spec it exactly how you want. So we've got the single MFT up here, obviously you've got twin downstairs and you've got a sort of another secondary up top on this boat, but you can do with electronics whatever you want. Screens, brands, you choose it, Targa will put it in. So that's incredibly flexible. But the nice thing about being up here is you can really enjoy the handling. I just love the surprise factor with these boats. They just don't look like they should be able to do what they can do. Again, we're up at that 25 knot speed, just under 3,000 RPM, and the boat really doesn't feel like it's working, but you do realise how insulated you are from the conditions downstairs. And that is the fabulous thing about having this up here. You don't have to use it, but on a nice day, it's a lovely place to drive the boat from. It really is. You look down over the top of the wheelhouse, which is just peppered with equipment, and then you can just see the anchor from here. Again, I don't feel like I need to stand up. I've got a great all-round view. Obviously the view aft is fantastic, but the funny thing about driving a bigger Targa is that from here, and especially from the lower helm, it feels like you're driving a much smaller one because you're still a long way forward, and you look back and the boat just keeps on going and you realise, God, I'm driving a 50-foot Targa. There's something special about it, it really is. And it's that reassuring capability that you just know you're going to be looked after whatever you're in. This isn't even touching the sides of what this thing can live with. But no, it's a fabulous companion if you really want to go out, whatever the weather. And even if you get caught out in weather you weren't expecting to, you know it will get you home. And I love the contrast of the way it looks and the way it performs. And the 46 is the ultimate expression of that. Well, that's the driving experience covered relatively thoroughly. Let's go and try and find a bit of shelter and we'll have a bit of a close look around the decks and the interior. If you enjoy our sea trial content, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel, that way you won't miss a thing. Hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll be notified every time we upload a new review. Before we do that though, we've got quite a good opportunity to talk about slow speed manoeuvrability, because we're going to pick up a buoy here, and it's a good excuse to use the DPS, for example, which this boat has an option. It's a cost option, but that allows you just to hit that button and then the boat will hold itself. So if you're preparing your line to go onto the buoy, for example, you can do that close by, knowing you can hear the engines kicking in now to keep the boat in place, knowing the boat's not going to move anywhere, and then when you're ready to do the manoeuvre, you can knock it back into docking mode, and we're on the joystick. You have a bow thruster standard. This boat's got the upgraded thruster, and you know, despite the control we have here with the IPS joystick, I would still want the bow thruster for fine adjustments, actually in situations like this where yes, I'm coming up to the buoy and I can obviously control the boat very easily with the main joystick, but when you're coming along with the bow next to something as small as a buoy, you might just want a little nudge with the thruster to give you that fine control, and I will probably end up doing that now. But this is the joy of the Targa, is my view forward when I'm doing slow speed stuff is excellent. I've got the side door here, so I can just pop onto the side deck and have a quick proximity check and make sure we're coming in as we should be. Yeah, told you the bow thruster still comes in handy. Bring it alongside. Through it goes. And yes, you can have the joystick with the stern drives, you can still do all of this. It isn't quite as good as the IPS, I don't think. The joystick just isn't quite as responsive, it's all a bit clunky. It is very smooth with the pods, But yeah, as you can see, slow speed manoeuvrability. This is a big boat. It goes back a long way. It just keeps on going. But it is easy, and of course you can drive it from up on the Flybridge at slow speed. You can also put joysticks out in the cockpit on both sides if you want. So yeah, in terms of manoeuvrability, even though it's the biggest Targa, it's still pretty easy to handle. Right then, the boy's secure. Let's get on with the tour. Let's start right back here then, where we find the hydraulic bathing platform, which is an option. You can't have it with the stern drive version for obvious reasons, because they would be in the way, but on the IPS boat it's no problem, and this has got a 400 kilogram weight capacity, and it's great for launching the tender, but it's also a nice way of getting in and out of the water. You'll notice this boat hasn't got any teak on the decks at all. Very easy to live with. It looks a little bit plain, but of course that's personal preference. If you want teak, you can have teak, and there's lots of lovely teak to drink in elsewhere all the way around these bulwarks. They're absolutely lovely and contrast quite nicely with the optional black line trim, which turns all the railings and everything black. It is quite a sinister spec, this boat. It does look quite something out on the water. You have the traditional split access gates here up into the cockpit, where this owner has spec'd twin tables. They are big old tables as well, and they both fold, so you can have this as well, and that obviously unveils the fiddled edging, so you can put stuff on there when you're moving along and know they're not going to slide off. But yeah, that really does create a large dining space, because you've got director's chairs as well that can go over on that side. Of course you can just have one table in, you can take them both away. They both stow underneath the engine hatches. We'll have a little look at that later on, but you can completely take them away and have an open deck. If you're doing water sports, fishing, something like that, you might want to have them completely cleared out of the way. You've got seating tucked in these corners here. It's quite nice. You've got the backrest up here as well. These cushions are smart, and you've got them here as well, and you can move those off, because obviously that is also your step up to the Flybridge. So if you don't want to be standing on cushions, you can take them off and stow them away. This extended overhang is a cost option. It's about £18,000, and of course it gives you a bit more space up top, and it's a stable. You can put seating on there if you want. This owner puts a freestanding table and chairs up there and creates an extra living space. But really the main thing is the protection it offers down here in the cockpit. It also means you can see the runners here. You can fully enclose this area with covers, so if the weather's not so good, you're extending your internal living space pretty significantly by still being able to use the cockpit. There's storage underneath all of these as well. You can see the latches, they just lift up, and you've got storage space in both corners and underneath this section here, and this is actually a cooler as well, so you've got some cooling space out here for drinks and things if you don't want to have to go into the galley. The other thing that really does strike you here is the quality. I've talked about the woodwork, but if you just look at how this upright here passes through the bulwark and down into the deck, this beautiful circular cutout here, it's absolutely exquisite stuff. They know their woodwork, Targa, and it's beautiful. And the other thing to mention is you've got these on both sides, and also fore and aft. So you've got a boarding gate over near the side door, which the helms person can use, and then you've got them back here as well, which is quite useful. It's a lovely, simple mechanism, just clicks back down very satisfyingly. Yes, lovely stuff. Right, full walk around decks, of course, so let's head down the starboard side. I don't need to tell you how safe these feel. You've got really nice high bulwarks. You've got, well, they're not tow rails, they come up to my knee, but yeah, it is a very easy, safe boat to move around on. You've even got a step in here as well. So, okay, you haven't got a full boarding gate here, so you can walk straight off, but you can at least pop your foot in there, step out over through this boarding gate here. It works pretty well. Open scuppers down here, so if you do take a big one over the bow, you know that the water's going to pour out really quickly and not settle there on the decks. And then we're up right forward to the foredeck, where this boat and most of them have got the comfort fore cabin option, which gives you this raised moulding here to deliver more headroom in the cabin below. Obviously we're going to look at that later on. If you don't have that, you have the traditional sort of Targa forward cockpit where you've got some seating and a table. But with the Flybridge, you don't necessarily miss not having that. You've got sunbathing space under this cover as well. This is just a big cushion, so you can stretch out in the sun. It would be nice to maybe to pop some seats in the corner here. This is what Saga have done, and that's quite a nice use of space. It just gives you somewhere else to sit, relax, and obviously means you can face this area here. But yeah, this is your sunbathing space. It's also, of course, the working area, so we have really great access to the anchor roller, the windlass, anchor hatch down here. That's really nice and deep. It's segmented as well, so you can keep chain separate from the shore power cable and lines and things like that. And then yeah, the cleats are all very easy to get to. It's very easy to look after, very easy to clean. Yeah, proper stuff. Let's head to the Flybridge now, shall we? Now the boat comes as standard with the Flybridge, but you don't have to have it. You can remove it if you prefer, if you don't think you're going to use it. But even if you don't think you're going to drive from up here, having this extra elevated living space, I think, is a really nice feature. And they actually have built these boats with the Flybridge, but without the helm station. So you just get even more seating. So that's something you could do if you think, I don't want to drive with the wind battering me in the face. That's why I've bought a Targa. Then you can at least still use it for some living space if you want, or not have it at all. And then you get a sunroof. And we'll talk about that a bit more when we're inside. But this is the standard arrangement with the L-shaped seating. And yeah, it's a really useful extra living space. Good weather, this is a nice place to be. You're elevated, the view's improved. If you're in a marina and you're sort of cockpit to cockpit with another boat, then you can get away from that as well. Yeah, and it's a nice use of space. It's not enormous, but that double seat there at the helm swivels around to face this area. You can see the slots for the table here. The table actually stows underneath this bench, so you can have a table up here and have lunch. There's no wet bar to speak of, but again, they have spec'd them with barbecues up here if you want them. And as I said downstairs, you put that hatch down, you duck under the A-frame, but then, yeah, that's living space back there. You could put some bean bags down there, or you can put what this owner does, some freestanding furniture, and create another seating area back there. So it's a flexible space, perfectly designed to have water toys up there as well, stand-up paddleboards, that sort of thing, and your life raft, that can all go up there, and it's secure and safe and really easy to access space. And that's the deck spaces then. Let's head inside and take a look at the interior. We come to the saloon and I can explain why this boat reminds me of my favourite pair of shoes, which is of course my fur-lined Crocs. And the reason is because, like them, this boat is rugged and hard on the outside. On the inside, it's soft and warm and cosy, and we have that typical Targa teak finish. Smells wonderful in here, it looks beautiful, and it's also very practical. You can see fiddled edges absolutely everywhere. Practicality is key. The other thing to mention is that you can have 2 or 3 cabins on this boat, and there will be inevitable comparisons drawn with the Sargo 45, which has a similar arrangement, but they do it in quite different ways. So, for example, to get to this amidships cabin on the Targa, you obviously have access through this staircase here, which means there are a few level changes to get up to the bathroom and down into the berth. There is a door here as well, of course, so you can close off the cabin. But actually inside, I hope you can get an idea of how much headroom there is in here. I'm 6 foot tall and I can move around in here, okay? You've got a double bed here. Okay, the person on the inside is going to be pinned in by the person on the outside, but the bed itself is a decent size. This owner has got 32-inch TVs in both cabins as well as in the saloon as well, and there's some, it's not huge amounts of storage, but you have got a hanging storage locker here, you've got another locker here, you've got some hooks as well which you can hang stuff up. The other thing is, you've got a pipe berth down here as well, perfect for kids, but actually it's a decent size. An adult could sleep there. It's a little bit coffin-like, but it's an extra berth there which could come in handy, and if not, you can just chuck your bags on there and use it as storage. And privacy is good as well, because the people in this cabin have their own bathroom. There's a bathroom for the forward cabin as well. Obviously, we'll look at that in a moment. But yeah, you have this total separation between guests and owner when you have people on board. And this is a decent size. You step up into it, but again, headroom goes up. So you can see I've got plenty of space above my head. There's enough space for a separate shower cubicle, so it's not a wet room. You can have a shower without getting everything soaked. Finish is lovely. You've got a heated towel rail. You've got nice teak grating in the floor. Obviously, you've got teak storage down here, a nice big sink. Yeah, it's a good enough space. And then if we move forward, we're up into the main part of the saloon. There's a big locker here, perfect for hanging your big coats. Your families can go in there, no problem. And then you have the dinette, obviously directly opposite the galley. On smaller Targas, the galley is forward next to the helm, but here they have the space to really expand this area. So you've got loads of countertop. This bit lifts up to give you your induction hob. That's a 2-burner hob there. Obviously you've got your sink built in as well, and then not huge storage but lots of it, and it's clever as well. So this whole section is given over to storing plates, and it's all nicely fiddled again with teak so things can't slide and rattle around. You've got your Targa branded mugs, and of course your shot glasses, and everything slides closed on soft close mechanisms. Really nice. You've got a fridge, under counter fridge here. It's not huge, but you have got it supplemented by another fridge underneath the helm seat as an option. And this boat, as I said, is spec'd very highly. So you've got the dishwasher, you've got a nice big oven here as well. This has got the contemporary wood finish as well, which is a cost option. and it's got the bigger TV, because as standard, your TV sits in here, and as you can see from the size of that hatch, it's never going to be very big. But this boat's got the option to have the 32-incher that drops down from here, and obviously is in a pretty good position, so everybody in the dinette can see it. And I like the fact that it's all manual. It's gas rams, it's catches. There's no buttons to press on this one. That being said, if you've got the 2-cabin version, so you haven't got the cabin down here, you have got space to have a pop-up TV if you want. But I actually think that's quite a neat solution. This is just storage under here. And you've got to take a moment just to take in the woodwork, the work it takes to create things like this, these built-in handrails here, all of this storage for chart work, this dedicated chart holder here, it's really beautifully executed. I talked on deck about sunroof options. If you have the Flybridge, then you're restricted to these pair of hatches over my head. If you don't have the Flybridge, you can have a full retractable sunroof, glass sunroof that slides back and gives you a big aperture over here. Without the Flybridge, you can also have some glass aft as well. So you can have an opening roof, you can have just a glass hatch if you just want some natural light over there, and you can also have solar panels that would be used to top up the domestic batteries. So a bit of flexibility with the roof if you don't have the Flybridge. If you do, you've got a couple of hatches overhead. Now, if you don't have the 3-cabin version, then you don't have this, but this is where your 3rd cabin is. Actually very similar in terms of access to the Sargo. What it doesn't have compared to the Sargo is its own bathroom, but it's easy enough to get down here. And okay, headroom is never going to be spectacular under the berth because we've got the saloon floor over here, but the bed itself, again like back there, is a nice size double, comfortable berth. You've got a little bench down here as well, so you can sit if you're not quite ready to get into bed. And then you've got storage here as well. Nice big hang locker here. You've got the same sort of reading lights above your head. There's a couple of hooks up here again. The space is used wisely. The geometry is very clever. It's a difficult space to try and fit accommodation into, but they've done a pretty good job with the space that they have. And then if we come back out of here, I should mention you can have a washing machine. This boat doesn't have it, so it's just storage under here, but if you were to have the washing machine, it would be under there. And then we have what I suppose you would class as the master. Before we go down there though, I've just spotted the fender baskets, and I wanted to mention that traditionally you would have these on the transom. That's where Targa tend to carry their fenders. This owner didn't want that, so they've got the fender baskets up there on the bow. But if you want those traditional aft ones, you can have them. Right, down here then, comfort 4 cabin, as I mentioned on deck. So that gives you greater headroom, and it also means you have a higher bed. So if you have the traditional sort of standard forward cockpit, the bed is set a fair bit lower. This is raised up and is more like a normal bed height that you'd expect to find in a house or a hotel. Yes, it's a nice space. This has also got the extended bathroom. That's a cost option to have the larger bathroom, but I think it's a sensible one to have. This is the owner's cabin. It just makes living in here a little bit more comfortable. You still have space for the separate shower cubicle, not quite as spacious as the one aft, but still pretty good. And again, headroom, very impressive, well over 6 foot in there. And I think storage is best in this cabin as well, because you've got this big hanging locker here, got a couple of drawers down there, you've got eye level lockers all the way around, and you've got wells on either side of the bed, so plenty of space to store kit in here. And there's also a couple of nice big drawers underneath the bed. We've got the blind across at the moment, but we've also got the cushions on, so you're not getting much natural light in through the hatch. Lift the cushion off and you get a nice amount of natural light down here, because there are only a couple of pretty small portholes on either side, so natural light is a little bit of a challenge. Get some coming in from the bathroom because it's got its own window as well, but with the hatch open, you do draw quite a lot of natural light down in here. If you're in the boat on your own, you'd leave that open anyway. So you do get some natural light from there, but there isn't a huge amount here in the cabin. Those are the living spaces then. The final place to go and check out is the engine room. If you're an owner-operator, access to the engine room and the machinery is really important, and it's fantastic on the Targa 46. As you can see, both of these hatches lift up here in the cockpit to give brilliant access, but also brilliant light and ventilation. And I mentioned these earlier on. This is where the tables stow when you don't have them up. You've got a spot for the legs here, the top goes in here, and you've got them on both sides. The downside to this setup is you can't lift these up with the table in place, so you'd have to remove it to get in here, but part and parcel of it with this design. Once in though, superb. With IPS, the engines are a little bit further forward than they would be with the sterndrives, but access is excellent to the motors and also the pods. Often forgotten is access to the pods. not a problem on this boat. We've got the fuel tanks down here. You can see the fuel filters really easy to get to on both sides. The generator's tucked down in that corner, and again, its filter and the raw water for the engines and it are easy to access. You can have a seakeeper on this boat if you want, so obviously that would be tucked down here somewhere if you did have that option. But no, it's an exemplary installation, easy to just glance at, make sure everything's okay, and if you need to do more in-depth work, really very good. There are boats for this sort of money and at this sort of size that offer more in terms of leisure space, sun pads, cabin room, but to worry about that is to miss the point of the Targa. If you want something that is ultimately dependable, reliable, but also has that performance edge, that wonderfully surprising performance edge, well then look no further. But tell me this, if you were in the market for a boat like this, would you prefer to have this or the Sargo 45 in your berth? Let me know in the comments below. There you have it then, that is our review of the Targa 46. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, it really helps us out. And if you'd like to watch my in-depth sea trial and tour of the Sargo 45, one of this boat's main competitors, you can watch that by clicking up here, and we've got loads more sea trial content if you click down here. And if you'd like to subscribe to the YachtBuyer channel, then you can click up here. Thanks for watching.